From killing a bear with just your hands to rescuing over 20 lives, here are 15 men who have endured or accomplished the impossible. Jackson Hole, Wyoming, today a tourist delight, was once a town for the strong-hearted. C. Dale Peterson, one of its residents, embodied the town's rugged personality when he killed a grizzly bear with his bare hands. When Peterson stumbled upon the bear, it was already annoyed because of a group of hikers, causing the bear to attack Peterson. The rugged Peterson reacted by jamming his right hand down the bear's throat, and while maintaining a tight grip, Peterson ferociously bit the bear's jugular vein. When the bear collapsed, Peterson beat the animal to death. On cross-examination of the bear's dead body, the game biologist confirmed Peterson was telling the truth about his confrontation with the grizzly bear. Sharvash Karapetyan was a 17-time world champion fin swimmer. The Soviet Armenian became famous not for his snorkeling skills, but for his exploits as a superhero, one of which made him retire from his sports career early. The incident occurred just when he was finishing up a 12-mile jog, and he heard the crash of a trolleybus with 92 passengers fall 80 feet into a reservoir. With reduced visibility due to the muddy water, Sharvash swam to the bus, broke the back window, and rescued 20 passengers by himself. This act of bravery left him with multiple wounds, and he was unconscious for 45 days. As fate would have it, he also saved people trapped in a burning hospital 10 years later. Poland was in crisis during the early period of World War II, when the country was being torn by Nazi Germany and Russia. Witold Pilecki was a Polish soldier and a member of the Polish resistance, which operated in secret. He volunteered to be an inmate at the Auschwitz concentration camp to gather information and intelligence. During his incarceration from 1941 to 1943, he masterminded a resistance movement behind bars, releasing valuable information to the Western Allies about Nazi Germany's genocide crimes before his escape. Albert Jacka won the Victoria Cross in May 1915 as a member of the Australian Imperial Force during World War I. On one occasion, he showed his bravery by rescuing 40 members of his platoon who had been arrested by Germans after they blew up the rest of his platoon. Albert mobilized 7 members who had recovered from the bomb blast and charged at the Germans. Every member of the platoon sustained injury, including Albert himself, who was shot through his lower right shoulder and received 2 head wounds. In total, he walked away with 7 injuries. Albert succeeded in retaking the line and capturing 50 Germans, and he was credited for eliminating between 12 to 20 Germans. Soviet doctor Leonid Rogozov developed peritonitis on the night of April 29, 1961. His only chance at survival was to surgically remove his appendix or risk death, and unfortunately, he was the only doctor present at the Novolazarevskaya station in Antarctica. The nearest medical aid was 1,000 miles away. The only option he had was to perform the appendectomy himself, which he did with the help of 2 non-medically trained researchers acting as surgical tool passers. Within 2 hours, Dr. Rogozov removed his appendix using a scalpel, a mirror, and some Novocaine. After he survived his own surgery, Dr. Rogozov received an Order of the Red Banner of Labor. By the end of World War II, Audie Murphy was credited for having killed 240 German soldiers. Even though he was only 21 years old, he became the most decorated US soldier, winning 33 awards and medals. But Audie Murphy, nicknamed Captain America, did not have a fancy entry into the US military. In 1942, the Marines and Air Force rejected him for standing at 5'5" and weighing just 110 pounds. He managed to join the army, and even during his training, he collapsed halfway through, but he was determined to fight. In 1944, while still battling malaria he contracted in Italy, he was deployed to France, where he encountered a German machine gun crew that pretended to surrender. Before the Americans could discover the German crew's deceit, the Germans picked up their rifles and started firing, killing numerous Americans and Audy's friend, which made Audy go berserk. Audy killed every Nazi within a 100-yard radius using the Germans' own weapons against them. 6 months later, his team number was shredded from 128 to 19, and they faced a huge German onslaught in a critical region in France. Instead of running away, Audy jumped onto the disabled M tanks and used the .50 caliber machine gun mounted on one of the tanks. This act of bravery, coupled with his tenacious approach in combating the German force, led Audy to deliver a decisive victory, with a small group of Americans dismantling the German onslaught. The Finnish sniper Simo Häyhä killed 505 Soviet soldiers within 100 days during World War II. This feat earned him the nickname the White Death because of his white camouflage suit. Simo was a farmer in 1939 until Russia invaded Finland, rousing his patriotic passion and leading him to defend his country. He picked up his rifle and a few cans of food, and in 6 feet of snow he started shooting at Soviet soldiers. He killed so many soldiers that he became the target of entire missions and counter-sniper teams, which he totally eliminated. On March 6, 1940, someone got lucky, landing a bullet in his head, which caused him to fall into a coma. Coincidentally, he woke up on March 13th, the day the war ended. During World War II, an American pilot, Stanley Vestasa, delivered outstanding performances, starting with the Battle of Coral Sea, where he shot down 2 Japanese fighter aircraft. The Navy was impressed with Stanley and transferred him to a fighter wing Wildcat. At the Battle of Santa Cruz, Stanley gave an ace-in-a-day performance by shooting down 7 Japanese planes during the same mission. He made one of the kills while out of ammunition by charging directly at the enemy plane head-on. That plane was also out of ammunition, forcing the enemy's plane to crash while Stanley survived. Siberian native Grigory Rasputin was an influential figure in Russia owing to his relationship with the Russian Tsar Nicholas II. He was known as a mystical faith healer, and it was thought Rasputin cured the Tsar's son of hemophilia. The Russian aristocrats did not like the influence Rasputin had over the Tsar, prompting them to plot his death. He was first poisoned with cyanide, which they put in his drink. The dose would have killed several men, but he was still breathing several hours later. They proceeded to shoot Rasputin in the back, but the shot did not kill him. Realizing he was still alive, the shooters shot him 3 more times, tied him up, rolled him in a carpet, and dumped Rasputin in a semi-frozen river. Surprisingly, autopsy reports showed his lungs were waterlogged, proving he was still alive after having been shot several times and after having been poisoned. His cause of death was drowning. Before Rasputin's death, he wrote a message to warn Nicholas that if he was ever murdered, he believed the imperial family would be slaughtered. Over a year later, Rasputin's prediction came true. Louis Zamperini competed at the 1936 Berlin Olympics as a long-distance runner. During the race, Louis got cut several times by the other runners' cleats, and he was bleeding everywhere. Although he did not win, the spectators applauded him, and Hitler asked to shake his hand for not quitting. His next Olympic performance in Tokyo was called off due to the famous World War II. Louis joined the military. He was captured and tortured for 2 years in Japan, and he became an inspirational figure after his release from prison. Louis even went back to Japan to forgive the guards who tortured him. In 1969, John Fairfax became the first man to cross the Atlantic alone using a rowboat. John was a 13-year-old British boy who fled to the Amazon jungle where he hunted for survival. At 20, he attempted suicide but failed and later became a pirate. When John set off on his historical journey from the Canary Islands to Florida, he battled with the storms and sharks across the 5,000-mile water for 6 months. Lepic and Monsieur's Grand Prix settled their dispute over a beautiful opera dancer by fighting a duel. The battle took place in the skies at a height of 900 yards in hot air balloons. Lepic fired his blunderbuss firearm but missed, while Grand Prego hit his target by hitting his opponent's balloon. It deflated and fell to earth, killing both Lepic and his partner. The relationship between Monsieur's and the dancer was left a mystery. Jack Churchill was a commander nicknamed Mad Jack by his colleagues. Unlike his colleagues, Mad Jack enjoyed using a longbow, arrows, and a Scottish broadsword in battle during World War II. Bringing a bow and arrow to a gunfight is a whole new level of bravery. In 1943, Mad Jack and Corporal Ruffell took on 42 German prisoners, captured a mortar post, and forced soldiers to surrender using his bagpipes, sword, and bow. Unfortunately, Jack was captured in a battle on the island of Brac when bomb explosions made him lose consciousness. He escaped from a prison in Sagan but was recaptured and imprisoned at Schackenhausen. He was later released. Michael Molloy was an alcoholic man from Ireland with no friends or family members. 5 men took out life insurance policies on him and tried to kill Michael by giving him unlimited access to drinks at a bar. They also added antifreeze to his drink, along with turpentine, horse tranquilizer, and rat poison. None of them worked. Then they dragged Michael outside, poured water over his body, and left him overnight in the cold at minus 26 degrees Celsius, but he still survived. The men then hit Michael with a car, and while he was hospitalized, they choked him by putting a gas pipe in his throat and pumping the gas for 1 hour, which led to his death. They were all charged for murder and found guilty. In 1823, Hugh Glass was hiking when a bear defending her 2 cubs attacked him. He defeated the bear using his knife, but the bear's claws shredded his chest, arm, back, and face while he was stabbing the beast. His colleagues left him to die in order to get away from this dangerous area where Native Americans who had been hunting them. Native Americans had already killed half of the team. When Hugh regained consciousness, he covered himself with a bear hide shroud and crawled along the banks of River Cayenne. For 6 weeks, he prevented his wounded back from getting gangrene infection, killed and ate rattlesnakes, and crawled until he found help. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe.